More money, you got less problems. At least minor ones, all your basics accounted for. Team elite I run with, I'm guaranteed to be Final Four. Less money, you got more problems. More money, you got less problems. At least.
All right, good afternoon back. We have a special Sunday edition going on today. You know, typically we do our interviews on Tuesday evening, but we have a special Sunday edition going on because I wanted to bring in two power hitters that are involved in the Albany community that I have done extensive work with over the years. And I think that their experience, their knowledge of what they can bring to this dialogue and this conversation is going to be huge. And that's going to be Charles Toohey, and it's going to be Brandon Stanfield. So I want to thank both of you guys for taking this afternoon to meet with us and to sit down with B.A.C.K, bringing Albany community's knowledge. And I look forward to hearing what you guys got to say today.
Thanks, Tyrell. It's great to have us both here this morning with you, and we're looking forward to giving some wealth of knowledge to the Albany community and make sure Albany gets back on the right track, and hopefully all of our neighbors here in Albany can take advantage of some of the information me and Charles have to offer.
Okay. And yeah, and just in case. Go ahead, Charles.
I agree with Brandon. Well said.
I was going to say, just in case if you guys are wondering where that mysterious voice is coming from, you're only going to see two videos for the call. Charles dialed into the call for us today.
Okay.
All right. Well, listen, guys. I like to always begin any of the interviews I do with B.A.C.K just with a general question. You know, right now, all of our families, the entire world has been going through a pandemic, and I just want to see how have you guys been doing in regards to the pandemic? How has your families been adjusting? How has life been for you for the last 5 months? And Brandon, I'll throw it to you first, and then I'll come back to Charles with the same question.
All right. Well, the pandemic has been extremely hard, as it has been on most families here in the world here. So my family and us, we've been really trying to stay quarantined, stay out of the wear our mask, and stay safe in the community. There's been a lot of the virus going around. It has really picked up in our area as of recently. So it's extremely cautious that everyone in our community really stays safe.
Okay. Have you guys been doing anything like creative to instead of like just staying in all of the time? What kind of creative activities have you and the family been doing to get through this time period? Because I know it's an adjustment phase.
It has been mostly staying out of really the public side. A lot more cookouts at home, and being very. It actually gave us a lot more time to be more family orientated, to doing more things together. So it has actually been a blessing. COVID-19 has came and it really opens our eyes to a different aspect of each other.
Okay, I agree. Charles, I'm coming back to you. Man, how have you guys been doing during this pandemic over the last 5 months? How has things had to shift or adjust for you and your household, sir?
Well, both of us, my wife Alice Green and myself, are getting up in age, so we are in the high-risk group. So we've been trying to stay away from groupings of people, which has been hard for both of us. Alice has been able to keep working virtually, you know, the way we do it, and myself the same way. Because of the land bank, we've been able to continue on with the operations of the land bank, but I probably miss my neighborhood bar and eat outdoors instead of eating inside when I go to a Panera or something like that. And so I don't know what's going to happen when it gets cold.
Because you can't do the outside option once the code hits. So it's like back to indoors we go. There you
go.
Yeah. Well, listen, man. I'm glad that both of you guys are safe. Your families are safe, and we're gonna go ahead and get into it because I don't want to waste either one of you guys' time. I'm gonna hit you with the first question, Charles. This one's gonna come to you first. Um, and actually, I love Albany the same way I know the both of you guys do. So here's the first question for you, Charles. What are you doing now? What kind of passion projects are you working on, or any new endeavors? I know a lot of people may not know your role with the land bank, but your hands are in a bunch of different projects. So please let our BAC community know more about you, what you're working on, and your future endeavors.
Well, when I graduated from college, I was in the Peace Corps and came home from Micronesia. I got a job at St. Anthony's School, the parish on Phillip Street and Grand Street in Albany. So I lived on Trinity Place and I lived on Broad Street. And when the school closed, I looked around the neighborhood and saw a lot of absentee landowners, a lot of absentee landlords. And I thought that the best thing to do was to allow people who lived in the neighborhood to get their own houses. So I bought a house at 13 Myrtle Avenue in 1970, so that's 50 years ago. And since then, I've been in the housing business, always for people in the neighborhood to get their own houses, because I believe community control neighborhood is essential, and you can't have absentee people running things. And so the current situation with the land bank is just a culmination or a natural extension to what I've been doing in terms of rehabbing houses, always two-family houses, because I think that's a perfect starter home, because the rent pays half the mortgage, and renovating houses, and then infill, which takes all those hundreds of vacant lots that are sitting around Albany, and ones that can't be used for good gardens or to the adjoiners who would be homeowners. We can put new houses in there too, but not for investor-owned. They should always be homeowners.
Okay. And it's interesting to hear that you've been doing and working in this field for over 50 plus years. I think that's what you said. And that was the reason why I tied in Brandon into this conversation, because I watch what this guy does, and, you know, I'm in amazement of his experience in regards to getting into real estate in Albany and what he has been able to amass for himself and his family over this time period. And he has way more experience and knowledge at it than I do. So I think that the two of you are going to be able to add a very important dynamic. But Brandon, I got the same question for you. What are you doing now? What kind of projects are you working on, and or any new endeavors? And hold on, actually, before you answer that question, I'm not sure if it's what we may want to do, because there's three of us on. We may want to mute. We may want to mute our phones if the other person is going, because I'm picking up a lot of background noise on somebody.
Okay.
All right.
So with my endeavors, I'm still reinvesting a lot into the community, into vacant properties around the Arbor Hill and West Hill neighborhoods of Albany. Where I got into it, I would say forced into it at a young age. There, it was when I was ready to move out. It was like, you're not moving out of a house. You have to buy a house before you moved out of a house. And so that pressure put me into, well, if I want to get out at 18, I need to start looking for a house. And it was go to college and I was really forced into home ownership. And once I got into there, it was another aspect of, I have this two-family house now. I want to piggyback on what Charles said. It does help when you have that extra additional income there. So I was, to say, privileged to have that motivation to say, you know, Brandon, you need to go into home ownership at a very young age there. And from there, I pursued on to the community, making sure the community has a better outlook when you see all the vacant properties, you know, make sure your value go down. So that really helped inspire me to really start fixing up vacant properties.
Okay. Now, when you say that pretty much you were forced into it, I know you didn't say it directly, but it sounds like it might have been a parent or something, because you said in order to get out the house at 18, was that the scenario? Was that what got you into home ownership?
It was. I came from, the background story of it is that, when our mothers, or my mother actually forced her kids to really be home ownerships at a very young age, which was I was very lucky to have that motivation there, which I feel like nowadays there's a lot of disconnect when it comes to home ownership, renting. A lot of people think that, I need to find an apartment and move in, and stay there, where you really should be, in my opinion, looking for more home ownership, more stability, income, and people get scared of that commitment on financial, that financial commitment that you have to the bank there. So you still have to, I believe, pursue that financial commitment there.
Okay. Okay. And actually, listen, man, I love what both of you guys said in regards to the fact that two-family homes, what it can do to a family or to a household, because not only does it add that stability that you need for yourself, but it also gives you that additional income. And like, this was a lot of the things that, I learned later on in life. And, I love getting that information out to people now about it, because, a lot of times we think that the avenue to home ownership is a lot harder than what it actually is. But, you need to have skills, and a lot of it has to do with how you plan, how you strategize, and, being able to, be able to plan, be able to strategize, and realize that the advantages that you're going to be able to give yourself in regards to getting equity in your own home, as opposed to paying someone rent, is 10 times worth it to go ahead and get into home ownership. But I got one more question for you guys, and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to get into this land bank conversation. And we're also going to get into establishing Black wealth, which is, one of the hearts of the conversation. How do we do that? Coming from the neighborhoods that we're talking about, the Albany community, but how do we create that? So I'm going to get back to that, but I got one last question, because it's going to help me learn a little bit more about both of you. One, and actually I'll let either one of you guys choose who wants to go first on this last one. What is your favorite place to go to in Albany, and why? Either one of you guys can take it.
I would say, for me, it'd be the Corning, the Plaza in Albany. I love the Plaza. They have a number of events. The African American Fest is done every year, including Kids Day, and OGS actually has a workforce challenge where multiple agencies comes together and do a 5-mile run. And I think that area there is just a central hub of Albany. I love visiting, even on summer days. There's multiple people there working out in the wintertime. They have the free skating that's available. And everyone, if you're from Albany, everyone enjoys the July 4th celebration that Price Chopper kicks off every year. So that has always been a great spot that I love to visit on a frequent basis.
Okay. Charles, same question to you. What's your favorite place to visit in Albany, and why?
Well, Brandon has a great choice, and his reasoning is really good too. I'm a little bit more nature-oriented, so I like the Corning Preserve and the bike path down there by the river. I love the boathouse area where you can go down there and run, and you can do exercise, and you can ride up to Cohoes and Waterville, and even to Schenectady if you want to go that far. And then the other part is the Albany Lake, which is right on campus. Nobody knows about it, but it's right behind Western Avenue. When you come into the campus there's a lake. It's a beautiful nature walk. It only takes about 20 minutes to walk around, and it's a great place to calm your mind no matter what time of day you're at.
Okay, do you hear that, Albany? I think we both just got exposed to some hidden jewels right there, because no, I did not know about that lake up there at Albany. The Corning Preserve was definitely one of my favorite places too, though. I just like to sit down by the water, get my thoughts together, play a lot of chess down there. But I did not know about the Albany Lake.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, listen. Thank you guys for being vulnerable enough to share a little bit of your experience in Albany and what you love about Albany. And I hope to come back to some of that. But I also want to go ahead and divulge or actually get into this land bank situation, because there's so many people in Albany who talk about home ownership, and it was like, I want to own a home ownership. A lot of people have come to understanding that the Albany Land Bank owns a lot of the properties there in Albany. And Charles, if you can go ahead and educate us on the experience or your experience as chair of the Albany Land Bank, and what information you want to get out to the Albany community about that, that'd be a huge help.
Yeah, just a quick history here. In the 1930s, the federal government, when they started the federal housing, FHA, they did this thing called redlining, where they identified where black folks lived in Albany, and they drew red lines around the neighborhoods, which is basically Arbor Hill, West Hill on the south end, and they wouldn't loan money in those areas. So that was the beginning of stolen wealth for black people, where they were living there, and let's say they were renters. They had no opportunity to buy in their own neighborhood because they were redlining. And not only did they redline the neighborhood, but they redlined the black family themselves, so that they made it difficult for black families to get a mortgage anywhere in Albany or anywhere. So it's a double sin that the federal government, the real estate agents, and everybody else has done. Fast forward to 2020, the land bank happens to own all these vacant properties, and guess where they are? Exactly those areas that the banks redlined. And why did we get them? Because when people couldn't own their own homes, absentee landlords owned them. They milked them. They didn't pay the taxes. They didn't fix up the houses. And now they're just left as shells. So many of the houses that we own are in such bad shape that it needs a lot of money to renovate. But we want to sell them to families in the neighborhood. Since we've been starting, we've been getting mostly investors because they don't need the banks. They get a small amount of money and they go and they fix it over themselves, and then they rent out the houses. So it's a little bit like more of the same. So happily, we've just been convened a recent community committee of people, including Carolyn McLaughlin, Jamel Robinson, Chris Gardner, and Tony Gaddy. It's sort of like an ad hoc committee to put our heads together to put pressure on the banks, because in this whole Black Lives Matter systemic racism thing, the banks have been AWOL. They haven't stepped up. They haven't done anything. And so we're about to, and with community input and support, to ask for the order, to say these banks have got to give loans to people in the neighborhood to buy our houses. And guess what? If it costs more to fix up the house than what you can sell it for or what a family can have paid for, you, the banks, have got to step up for the technical term is called gap funding, which basically write a check to help for the difference between that and the basis. Why should they do that? Why should they write a check for people? Because they're the ones that stole the wealth from the families to begin with. So all they're doing is making reparations for what they did to begin with. It ain't no gift. It's something that they need to do to make up for the sins of the past.
Go ahead, Charles. Listen, wow. One, I did not know any of that. And I mean, in regard to what you guys are planning and putting together here in those red line communities. But I do remember reading a little bit about redlining and what it does. And like it says, it disenfranchises particular communities of color, and you don't have access to that hope of having the American dream. So what I mean, and like banks, like you said, and in regards to the social unrest that's going on right now, Black Lives Matter movement, and the systematic racism, it's just like the banks are still profiting greatly during this time period. So to be able to put more pressure on them to give back, it really would be a win-win, because it's like if you want the business and if you want the communities to get better and to thrive, you got to give them the opportunities and the resources to do it. And like I'm glad you did say what you said too. It's like a lot of the buildings are already dilapidated, and that's one of the things Brandon and I had talked about, and we talk about pretty often. And it was just like, so imagine the amount of money you really need to invest in a house after you buy a house for 20 grand, you might need an additional 70, 80 grand to get that house up and running. So I'm glad that you guys are talking about gap funding. I might have messed up the term if I did. Sorry about that. But the gap in between there, and holding the banks responsible for putting them in a position to help the families or the individuals to sustain to get the income that they're going to need. That's dynamic right there. That's going to be huge.
Hey, Charles, I got a question for you. So I know you mentioned there's a lot of investors that's coming in looking for these properties due to the substantial amount of work that these properties are entailed with. Do you think it'd be more beneficial to have these contractors investors, I would say, come in and purchase these properties so that we can get the community back looking in a more systemic way? Because right now you go down First Street or Third Street, it's just full of vacant houses, and you have the broken window theory where you get one and they just keep going. So would it be beneficial for us to relinquish some of this work over to investors?
Absolutely, and that's what the land bank has been doing for the last 3 years. It's not the ideal thing because you'd like to have homeowners, but don't forget there's always a mix on the block. There's going to be some homeowners and some renters. It's about how responsible the landlord is and what they do for the block and for their tenants to make sure that they're good landlords and good tenants. And you're absolutely right that if we're sitting on our hands waiting for the banks to come up with this money for a family to buy the house, meanwhile the houses are sitting vacant, that's no good. So our business in the land bank is to get that property out the door. Bank is probably not a good word because it sounds like we're saving them. We're only saving them, like we're about to do a big project in the South End where we have like 75 lots that we've been able to put together to do an RFP to actually, do a whole new development. But these one-off lots, definitely we need to get them out the door, the houses we need to get out the door, and if an absentee landlord, an investor wants to do that, all we do is we vet them to make sure that they don't have outstanding code violations, that they haven't been foreclosed before, and that the neighborhood knows them so that they know that they're responsible people that are going to contribute to the welfare of the block.
Charles, I want to commend you guys as well because I have been through that process with the land bank, and it's a very strenuous process, and you guys do a great job at making sure landlords and investors do have the financial backing and the experience on redoing a vacant property, because it's just not going there and put paint on the walls and a few cabinets. There's a lot of properties require an extensive amount of work, and a lot of first-time homeowners or first-time landlords, they don't have that constructability knowledge to really put together a vacant property. So I do commend you guys on that process.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because one of the other things we're talking about is developing black contractors in the neighborhood, that people have been struggling for years to fix over these houses and don't have the opportunity to do it. And so we're also looking on the other side about developing those minority contractors with the Black Chamber of Commerce, with Chris Gardner, different people that can step up and develop these guys with one truck, that say they know how to fix up a house, they've got a skill, and we want to empower them. One small thing that's going on is Home Leasing is this really big company out of Syracuse, or I think it's Rochester, that's doing a whole bunch of houses on Clinton Avenue. And we'd say, oh, this is same old, this is just another white-run organization. Yeah, it's going to be affordable housing. But what's interesting is that they have developed a cadre of contractors, whether they're from Rochester, Syracuse, Albany, whatever. And so we're going to tap into whatever contacts they have, and then when we have contractors that, let's say, want to tackle a house themselves, we can get these people who have already fixed up 71 houses on Clinton Avenue to mentor them, so that you say, here's the way we got to attack this house. What is the best order of construction, the construction plan, the estimating, the scheduling, so that the contractors can succeed in that particular house and then go on and do other houses, because you don't want to have them to have a bad experience. And we all know a big old house There's always something bad. You're going to get some surprise. It's going to mess you up. So we want to make sure that those mess ups end up with an opportunity and not a failure.
Listen, that's amazing. One, when you think about a lot of people overlook the importance of mentorship or internships and being able to get that firsthand knowledge from somebody else. But I think it's some of the most beneficial time you can ever spend. So to be able to tap into individuals who are already working on 71 different projects in the same community, they'll definitely be able to share with you their experiences of what they came up against and what you might want to expect. Because like you said, imagine buying a house and you think that you have everything that you need, and you find out that, you know, it turns out to be, what do you call it, a money pit. And it's just like, well, now I got to get out of here, and I've already started all of this work, but I really don't have enough money to go ahead and finish it. And now I'm trying to give this property up to somebody else who can come in and finish the project because I ran out of money and I can't do it. So
that's exactly right, and that's what we're trying to head off. We don't want that to happen.
Okay, good. All right.
So well, Charles, I'm happy you brought up the fact of the Clinton Ave project with home leasing. I have actually got the opportunity to do some work with them as well, and I love the fact that they do have a lot of minority contractors on their job sites. And the premise around Albany is when they see this home leasing come in and start revitalizing Clinton Avenue, they think of gentrification. They're going to come in, fix up all these properties, and then kick the black people out, not knowing what the background of their of what home leasing has to offer to Albany. What would you give our neighbors here in Albany to when they talk about gentrification on Clinton Avenue?
Well, it's absolutely a threat because white money, when they got money, they can go in there and outbid for things. And so what's great about the land bank is the properties that we own, we can control that. We can say, hey, wait a minute, you know, you're not from the neighborhood. We might want to have a few of you here, but you're not going to take over just because you're the highest bidder. We don't have to give our properties to the highest bidder. What's interesting about home leasing is on the surface it looks like just another white corporation. But the guy that runs it, the founder, the guy's 85 years old, I don't know his name, but he actually has a conscience. He has a social conscience, and he understands those projects are, you know, affordable housing. Now, for people in the neighborhood, they say, hey, it's, you know, $1,100 or something. It's $200 more than what I'm paying now. You know, this is too much. I can't afford it. I understand that, but you got to look at what you're living in right now. And, you know, if you're going to do affordable housing that has decent, good heating systems, safe heating systems, plumbing, wiring, heating, you know, that's what a renovated townhouse on Clinton Avenue is going to be. And so I think that people understand that. And I might add this one other thing, is that families are paying way over what they should be paying for their rent, right? If you look at the statistics, it's not 25%, it's not 30%, sometimes it's 50% more than that of their disposable income. But the point is, they're paying a whole lot for rent. And so when we go to these banks and say, we'd like you to let a family buy a house on Clinton Avenue or a house on Broad Street or whatever, they say, oh, well, they're not making enough money. Well, guess what? Look what they're paying for rent. And we want the banks to change their qualification process to say, you have to look at what this family has been paying consistently for 3 years, 5 years, or whatever, and qualify them on that. Don't go by their income. Go by what their proven track record of the ability to pay is.
Yeah, I think
that's a great point, Charles.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see because, you know, one, it's going to be a process. You got to think about it. These institutions have been around for quite some time, so you know you'll always find some type of language or something to put in a barrier to makes it a little bit more difficult for people to actually get in. So it would be great over time to see how this plays out. And you know, but one, I'm happy that the initiation of it and trying to hold more people more socially conscious about it and aware of it, say, well, you know what, we might need to change up the system. The same way we're talking about it in all these other aspects in regards to social unrest, we're talking about it in housing too, because we want everyone to be able to have a part of the American dream. And home ownership was the American dream. It was always like, be able to, get your own house, have a white picket fence, or, whatever it is that you dreamed of. But that was when they sell you home, when they sell you the American dream, that's always been a part of it. So, breaking down these barriers in regards to what makes it harder for Black community to have access to it is going to be huge. But I know it's going to be a process over time. And, I really want to see what we can do before. Like, a lot of times people wait for the larger institutions to make a change. And the way my mind works is, I don't like waiting around for the larger institutions. It's like, what can I do now? What can we do now, instead of waiting for the systematic change of it? So, I would say, one, I'm looking forward to that coming, and how it trickles down to our communities. But what advice or what encouragement can we give those now who are interested in home ownership in the Albany community, knowing that we still have those barriers in play, because there's still plenty of opportunities to still get involved and to get access to it. Am I correct?
Absolutely. And what the land bank has been doing is we're gearing up more case management people, and actually we're tapping into home headquarters, which is in Syracuse. It's an up and running organization that already counsels people. Just for example, the counselor in Syracuse, because this can be done virtually with COVID anyway, has worked for a bank for 17 years. So they know all the tricks. They know the barriers that come up, And so, for example, a family will say, oh, geez, this bank says I got to have 640 credit. I only got 620. I want to bag it. I give up. I can't do it. I told you I couldn't do it. This counselor from home headquarters in Syracuse, I've seen this person in operation. They talk to them and say, look, we're going to get you this deal. We're going to massage the number. We're going to do whatever you got to do to make sure that you're going to get this deal. Don't give up hope, because a lot of it is about hope. It's a psychology of, I can do it, not I can't do it, positivity instead of negativity. And by the way, the banks, when they could, at the end of the day, they're going to get a mortgage out of this where they're going to make money on the mortgage. They're just saying, oh, we can't go in these neighborhoods. Well, that's what we got to change. We got to say, you got to go in this neighborhood because you created the problem. And by the way, it's a terrific PR thing for you. There'll be big heroes. They get out there for every little thing, and they get their picture in the paper for this, that, and the other thing. So we'll be happy to have them come to the ribbon cutting for the first 10 homeowners at their bank. And once again, there's so many banks. So let's say we did 100 houses in Arbor Hill. We could get 10 banks, 10 loans each. What's the big deal? The PR value is more than whatever the perceived risk is on their part.
And actually, you know what?
That's a great point, Charles, is talking about that.
No, I was gonna say, I'm coming to you right now just about something that you said to me. Charles, you just brought up misinformation out there, and how it can be discouraging. And what we need is hope to know that, you can do that. Brandon told me a story. It had been maybe about 2-3 weeks ago about how he helped a particular individual who had gotten some bad information, who was told that they're going to have to wait 2 to 3 years for something to clear up. And when he told me the scenario, it was like, we need more people like you who have the experience, who have been involved, and who can educate the community in regards to what the actual process looks like and what they need to do. But Brandon, I'm gonna throw it to you in regards to that.
Yes, Charles. So I love the fact that you brought up about the banks and how difficult the process may seem to be, because you do get a lot of misinformation. The credit score issue, a lot of people don't. A big question I always receive is, I have a low credit score. Can I get qualified for a bank? Well, the other question you have to think about, do you have consistent income? Or do you have employment? What is your debt to income ratio? A lot of people don't talk about that, but you have to make smart decisions where don't go out and buy, your $80,000 car when you still need. What does your debt to income look like before you go process that home loan there. And a lot of people don't take that initiative to really go ahead and pursue home ownership because they just don't know the parameters and what they need to look for and show the bank. So that's a big thing that I would like to get out there for all our viewers, is to really and shop around banks. There's so many different banks. If you get denied by one bank, move on to the next bank and move on to the next bank. Just don't give up. A big thing I live by is the fear of home ownership. You have to act like, expect to be a homeowner and act like it in order for it to come true. So it's definitely a psychology behind hoping that you will become a homeowner.
I couldn't agree with you more, and that's why we need to one, provide the product to say, yes, there are houses out there. They don't have to be land bank houses. It could be any house. You know, pick a house that you like, and then work with the family so that you can plan ahead to save the money that you need to do. And so I agree with you that, you know, people go out and they buy the car and they buy, you know, they get debt because they don't believe that it can happen. And so our job is to make them realize, you know, that there are products out there, there are lenders, and there are counselors that will work with you to get you to the point where you can own your home. And we all know that your home is your savings bank, because the day you start paying on the mortgage, you're paying it down. So then you can have a home equity loan down the road. That's how people pay to get their kids to college, and how they get a vacation home and do these things, because every day they make a payment, they get more equity in the house. And the other thing you got to worry about is equity. We need to know, we need to do enough houses in a neighborhood in the South End of Arbor Hill so that those houses maintain their value, so that, you know, you work hard to get a house, and then it turns out that the value of the neighborhood doesn't go up. Why doesn't it go up? Sometimes what happens is when other people want to sell their houses, the realtors, they say, oh, I don't want to deal with a family from the neighborhood because they got the credit scores and they got the income. I'll just bring in an absentee landlord. And so then the neighborhood, the block, goes back again to what it should be, what it was before, which is bad. And so we got to make sure we educate the real estate community that when people buy houses in Arbor Hill in the South End and they want to sell houses in Arbor Hill, you have to list them, and then you have to show them to legitimate buyers from the neighborhood, and don't fall back on landlords to sell to.
And you guys touched on home equity, right? That was probably...
Hey, Charles, I got one question for you in regards to what you just...
Go ahead,
Charles,
Brandon.
I got one question just to follow what you just said. Can you explain to a little bit more about what equity in home equity looks like for a new homeowner? A lot of times when you put that word out there, a lot of people just don't, you know what it means, but they don't know what it means. And so if you could just explain to how that is so beneficial for when you buy your first home in 10 years down the line, what that home equity looks like.
Yeah, so you got a mortgage payment of $1,000, $1,200 a month, whatever it is. You got a 30-year mortgage, you got 5% interest, whatever the interest rate is. The day you start making your first payment, you're paying back that loan. Unfortunately, the way the banks work is you pay mostly interest in the first 5 or 10 years of the property, so that your balance, you get a summary every year from the bank, say, this is how much your loan, how much you paid off this year. And you go for the first few years, you go, wait a minute, I paid mostly interest, and the loan isn't going down. That's the bad news. The good news is if you hang in there long enough, you stay there a few years, suddenly it's no more interest or very little interest. It's mostly principal you're paying down. So every month, you pay down. So suddenly you say, wait a minute, I paid $120,000 for this house, and I only own 80, or I own 50, or whatever it is. And then the home equity loan comes in, where you can go back to that same bank, and for some low interest rate, I don't know what the equity loans are, but they're 1%, 2%, 3%. You can reborrow against the mortgage, against the value of the house. You can reborrow. That's your piggy bank. That's your savings account. That's the payback for all those years of making the regular payments. Now it's time for you to cash in and do something good with that money.
Mm-hmm. And you look at those amortization schedules, and like I said, it wasn't until my wife and I purchased our home here that we start to pay attention to all of those little things. So if you look at the schedule, like you said, banks are gonna get their money back, and a lot of times they get the money back because we don't look at how much we're paying in interest. And I wasn't the best at math my entire life. I got better as I got older. And once I started looking at the numbers, it's like, well, wow, you know what? We bought this house for this. If we stay on a 30-year mortgage, this is what we're going to end up paying. And that makes no sense. So it's like a lot of times educating the market on, 15-year fix, educating them about, like you guys said, home equity, and realizing that it doesn't even matter how much you put into the house, because it's going to look at comparable houses in the area. So that's the importance of having other houses in your area. We're just like, we looked at our house up there in Albany, and we're just like, my brother was like, man, you guys did so much work to this house. It was like, it's got to be worth so much more. But then it's like, it still goes off of the comparable houses in the area. So, people need to know about that. One, be able to look at what you're going to be paying over time, interest rate, and being able to get to a point of paying down your principal instead of paying all of this amount of money in interest. Because what a lot of banks will do is you'll start to pay down, and you're about to get right there at that point where you're paying primary on your principal, and then they'll say, well, you can go ahead and refinance, and then you start that whole process all over again where you're paying a bunch more in interest. But the education and the knowledge that has to be, the ways in which we all have to be educated on this process will make it more of a bearable process to go through, because once you have the knowledge, you know what to look for, and you don't put yourself in a place where you end up you don't have any equity in your house, because you don't want to owe all of that. You don't have any equity in your house, and you be upside down. So
the other thing I would like to bring up too as well, when it comes to the banks, a huge part of their review is your taxes. And so when it comes to taxes, when you do have a house, and they look at your debt to income, your Schedule E, which is that part of the conversation comes a little bit further along the process. But even before the house, that's something that most people need to really look at. I mean, I feel like your taxes is almost like your Social Security number. You should know that like the back of your head, what's on your taxes. And you should always I always recommend getting professional help to make sure that they're correct. But know what's going on here, know what your income is, know what your debt it looks like, because that's one of the first things that the bank is going to ask for. They're asking for 2 years of your tax return, and most of the time they're going to ask you for that third one later on down the road when they get to the process of what they call an underwriter. So I would recommend everyone to really know your taxes, know what's on it, and take a proactive approach when it comes to getting them done every year, on knowing how what that process is going to look like when they go to another bank to say, hey, I want a loan. You should prepare yourself for that conversation on why or why not these numbers are lower. And I know just growing up in Arbor Hill area, a lot of people have the systemic of, I want this huge tax return when I get it's tax time, and I can go buy new furniture, I can go buy whatever I need, but we really have to not take that lump sum all the time and really look at what my taxes are going to do and what it's going to look like to a potential bank.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. But when you're going forward, if you become a homeowner, we just talked about how the banks get theirs first. The first few years of the mortgage are all interest. But guess what? That's all deductible. That interest is deductible. So you weren't able to take your rent off your income taxes. And let's say you're in a 30% bracket, right? And so you're paying, $1,000 a month. That's $12,000 a year. You cannot take that off your income tax. but you can take the interest, not the principal. You can take the interest off your taxes. So the first few years where the bank is socking it to you for interest only, the upside is that you can deduct that stuff from your income. So let's say you're paying $1,000 a month mortgage and 90% of it is interest. Well, instead of $12,000, call it $10,000, 30% bracket. That's $3,000 that you get back at the end of the year because your money is sheltered by, it's called the homeowner tax deduction. You know, our tax system favors homeowners, aka white people. They're the ones that wrote the law. Favor homeowners, right? Well, when you become a homeowner, you join that club, and you get to take that tax deduction of the interest on the income.
That's a great point, Charles, and I really appreciate you explaining that clearly. It's almost like you're living, if you bring it back to the renting perspective, is it's like now you're living rent-free or mortgage-free for the first couple of months of the year, because all that money gets given right back to you when it comes to taxes. So it's really beneficial. I promote home ownership on everyone, and to please pursue it.
Yeah, it actually it made me right now. It made me think about an article I read on CNN maybe about 3 weeks ago, and they were talking about a woman. She might have been, don't hold me to this, she might have been in Arizona, wherever she was at, but she was just talking about how, like Charles mentioned earlier, redlining, you know what I mean, and how it affected particular African-American communities. And she was just saying the new redlining that's going on sometimes is, and they're not supposed to use these things against you, but they'll look at the banks, they'll look at the zip code in which your house is at. They'll look at whether or not if you are single versus married. And she was just saying how her debt to income ratio was really low. She had a good credit score, and she couldn't get. I think she was trying to refinance on a home that her grandfather, who was a vet, had passed down to her, and she couldn't get the refinancing. And she was like, everything in the earlier stages were great. And once she got past the early stage, they ended up asking her, like, you know, questions again about, you know, single versus being married, and the zip code of the property. So it almost seems like Charles was mentioned earlier, they're trying to get rid of some of those systematic the systematic racism in that process. But it seems like you still try to find new ways to do it.
No question about it. And that's why, you know, like, I'm just Albany, New York. Albany is a small town, and we think that if we focus enough our energies on Albany, that the banks can't hide. So that when they do stuff like that, we got mortgage counselors, we got people that just because you got your mortgage, goodbye, we won't see you again, that if you go and want to do these things, that we're going to have people on staff, whether it's the land bank or home headquarters or somebody, that you can go to and say, I don't like what this bank is doing. And the banks don't like the sunlight. You know, they don't like to see that there's this subtle thing going on. So there are weapons you can use, but you need to get educated and have advocates to go with you.
I agree. It was like, we got a lot of our information. I was emailing with Charles a while ago, and I was telling him, was like, you know, my wife is obsessed with Dave Ramsey, and Dave Ramsey's philosophies have helped us tremendously in regards to educating ourselves on the process and generating wealth, you know, which is going to lead us into another segment of what we wanted to talk about today, was creating Black wealth. You know, it's like imagine generation after generation going through the same cycle. Imagine generation after generation living in the same house. Imagine generation after generation not being able to take hold of the American dream. And part of that is, you know what I mean, having the wealth, and before the wealth, having the knowledge of how to manage the wealth. And that's where I would like to go with you guys next, in regards to, you know, how do we create a Black wealth? How do we create a population in the Albany community that is able to thrive, sustain, and create more opportunities, not only for themselves, but for the Albany community? Charles, I'm gonna bring that back to you, because I know that's something you're passionate about.
Yeah, I've just been focusing on the real estate side because we have all these properties that the land bank owns. But black wealth in general, it's about, I'd say get together, organize, get clubs, credit clubs, bank clubs, money management clubs, where people sit around, like AA, and it's a support group, right? So the problems that we've been discussing, the individual problems that both of you guys have brought up, if you had an organization that's local to go to and say, hey, let's talk about this at our monthly meeting, and then where do we go, which button do we push with which bank and which credit and which real estate agent. There's strength in numbers, and there's also, that's where the knowledge comes from, is people sitting around together. I know it's a virtual world, and you can, go on YouTube and learn all about credit management and stuff, but, all politics is local, all building wealth is local. I'd say building wealth, and once again, the real estate analogy is block by block, right? You want to have wealth in, on 2nd Street and Lark Street. You want to have wealth on Broad Street and 2nd Avenue or something. And you want to have wealth that builds and stays and sustains itself. And that's transferred to the families that live on those blocks. And so that's what the strength in numbers, the people talking about it, the old word is neighborhood association, okay? But when we're talking about black wealth, we're talking about the black families getting together, people of like interest, an interest group, and saying, let's get together and talk about this every month. And we'll talk about each problem as they come up, whether they belong, the members have a problem or whether they're theoretic problems. But we need to unify and be together so that when we go with one voice to a lender or to somewhere else, they're going to have to listen to us.
Okay. Man, actually, Brandon, before you chime in on this one, I actually just want to say, not only is it about exactly what you just said, Charles, but, I want to add another dynamic to it, safety. So yes, is equally important to be able to have home ownership in each of these areas, these neighborhoods, Broad Street, 2nd Ave, Lark Street, Judson, wherever you want to put it. But it's also equally, probably, if not more important, to be able to have safety in these communities too. So I'm just going to mix up one question in here because I think it ties in and say, sadly, Albany has seen more and more violence in our communities, has experienced a lot of loss over the years. What changes would you guys like to see? What is your hope for the community in that aspect? And you can tie it back into real estate, or you can just keep it as general as you would like. But what is your hope for the city? Brandon, we'll go with you. I think you're still on mute.
I've seen a lot more police presence on in the Arbor Hill area since the shooting has started, which it's a commitment to what the city has been doing there. And what I would like to see, is one of the things that to piggyback off Charles there, and black wealth is the entrance there on Northern Boulevard, revitalized. That's a major hub. Thousands of people come into Albany each and every day, and it's just an eyesore with all of the abandoned properties right there on Henry Johnson Boulevard. So I would like to see that area change up. And I think once the black wealth come in, the more people was going to take more ownership of where they live at. I know during the riots, it was sad to see. It was very, very sad to see all of the places up and down Central Avenue boarded up. I mean, it looks like a scene out of a movie in my opinion there. And to see the community come back together, so one by one, stores took down their plywood and started opening back up. So those are some small things that I would like to see the black community and black wealth come together and create more minority businesses in the community.
Okay. All right. What about touching on the safety issue? And then Charles, I'm coming back to you. But Brandon, what about the safety issue in these areas? Like you said, you mentioned the rioting on Henry Johnson Boulevard, or what happened in the Albany community on Central Avenue. How much does safety play in regards to wanting to own in our community in these particular neighborhoods?
it's an extreme difficult situation there. Safety is my number one concern if I or anyone else opens up a business. They don't want to open up a business and fail due to customers not wanting to come in or associates not interested to want to come over because they don't feel safe. So safety is the number one concern. I would put this back to the community there, and it's not all just on the police department. It's really on the community members themselves to say, let's keep this safe. Let's not act a fool around here, so that we can attract more customers and more people to our area.
Okay, all right, I greatly appreciate that. Charles, I'm actually, if you need me to read the question again, I can read the question to you, but I want to throw it right back to you in regards to that. You want me to read the question again?
Nope.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you take First Street for an example. The report just came out today, right? The police knew that they had a problem there. They kept going back the same way. They didn't engage the community. And so eventually there was an incident with the police, right? And you say, well, why couldn't we get the community involved? Well, there's a lot of people who we need police in the neighborhood to protect the good people in the neighborhood, but we also need neighborhood cooperation. But if the police are the kind of police that don't relate to the people on the block, the old cop on the block, the guy on the beat that knew everybody in the neighborhood, and when there was a conflict between two teenagers or two 20-year-olds, the word of mouth would say, hey, Officer so-and-so, these guys are going to shoot each other, right? Why don't we have that now? Because the police we're not recruiting the right kind of police, and we have the wrong kind of policing in the neighborhood that the community just can't buy into. So you don't have the support of the community, which is, of course, what you need for, like we say, the cops can't do everything. And the First Street is a good example. It wasn't a law enforcement thing. They should have done something about that, a long time ago. And in terms of protecting businesses on Central Avenue, I totally agree. A businessman wants to have a safe community, all right? And the bigger picture here, and I would quote Dr. Alice Green on this, is that why doesn't this happen? Why are these shootings happening in Arbor Hill and not in Colony, right? How come people aren't shooting each other in Colony? Is there something wrong with the people of Arbor Hill that they think they have to shoot each other? No. We have crime-generative factors. We have schools. We have housing. We have health care. We have employment. And so when kids have nothing and they have nothing to do and their only source of income are things that are under the table, and now it becomes a territory thing, and I'm going to go shoot you because you got my territory or those territory, that's what we got. And it's got nothing to do with Arbor Hill. It's got everything to do with our priorities in government of where we put the money in our taxes.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. And it's the truth. And it's, listen, I don't even have anything to add to that, Charles. I think that that was honest. I think that was as transparent as you can get. A lot of times the problems that we're facing in our communities isn't directly related to the people who are in the communities either. Sometimes we go back to that the system of what's going on, and we have to prioritize where we put our money, who's in control of our money, and some of that does come back to us as community members. One of the guys I interviewed maybe in July or so, Daryl McCrae, he owns Brick's Barber Salon among other things. But they're talking about doing exactly what you said, Charles. Like you said, creating groups or creating a membership. And one of the ideas, I won't shed all of them, but one of the ideas was that being able to create a group in which we can create or utilize our own wealth. So let's say you have 100 or 1,000 people in this group, and each person gives $1,000 to that group, and you're able to have your own money to see fit where that money is placed and how that money is utilized in your communities to make it better. And I think that we have more than enough people, if that was the level of entry or the entry barrier right there, we have more than enough people to go ahead and start to put that together. But it's really going to come back to us as people are concerned in the community about the community and bring in the resources back to everyone to get them on board and knowledgeable about that process. And the individuals have to be willing to take in the information, be introspective enough to say, well, you know what, I can do better in this area, and I'm looking for help, and educate me there. Because like I said, it's not that we can't do it, but a lot of times you got to be put, one, you got to be ready to make the necessary changes within yourself and for yourself. And then two, we're a community that we need each other in order to be able to bring it to light. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think it's a terrific idea.
Me too, Terrell.
Funny. It's a group like that, people get advice from people and say, hey, you could go this way instead of that way, and then you don't need the money. You know, think of this. There's strength in communal knowledge or collective knowledge. And then the other thing is, a lot of times it really doesn't involve thousands of dollars. It might mean a few $100s will make or break a deal for somebody. And that kind of self-help organization is definitely effective for doing that.
You know, being a native of Albany, Tyrell, I hold dear to my heart, you know, the things that go along in the city here. And it's just having Black wealth and even wealth in general, seeing our community come back is one of my priorities as well. Next time I go into every time I go into a real estate deal, you know, I would love to see the city come back to a great town there that it can be. So.
What kind of well let's say this just for starters point in regards to creating Black wealth, what would you say is the starter point or the starter position that us as a community we need to be in? What would be the first area of focus that you say we need to focus on?
I found for myself, I would always say the safety issue. Safety issue right now, you know, all over the news. It's the safety issue. So creating that safety issue so that we can get businesses and people to reinvest in the community right now. That would be my number one concern.
Okay, Charles.
I'd say a savings account. You look at your family budget, you know, and when you look at the budget real quick, you say, hey, I got no money left. You know, it all goes out. But I'll take an ATM. I'll give you an example. You got to go and spend $2 to get $20 from an ATM. Guess what? I don't have a PIN card. I never use an ATM because every single dollar you pay to them goes to the bank. And if you start going through your family budget and look at the kind of cable package you got, you're using ATMs, you know, there's a lot of little things, you know, like in a business, what's the difference between profit and loss? The sum total of details is the difference between profit and loss in a business. So the sum total of details in a family household budget is how you look at what you're spending for things. Why did I go out and get that fast food thing? Why did I go there to shop there? You know, and you say, well, that's not going to make much. But if you wrote it down and you added it all up week by week, month by month, you would be surprised how much you might have to put in a savings account.
And I agree. You know, I'll just use myself. You know what I mean? I'll be transparent enough for myself. Like I said earlier, I wasn't the best at numbers early on in my career. Now, you know, I pay attention to almost everything. So looking at the budget or looking at what you're spending on. I remember maybe about 3 years ago, we decided to get rid of our cable, right? We got rid of our cable and said we just need the highest internet. And it wasn't like we were in a crunch, but it was just like, in order to, you start realizing that every dollar matters. So you want to account for those dollars. And we're just giving away money through subscriptions, through different avenues. We're just giving away money. So it's just like, once you start looking at it, I think at the time, our bill might have been like $270-something for internet, cable, home security. What we did was we got rid of the cable, got rid of those other things. And even for home security, I decided to go out and buy my own Ring devices. And Brandon and I were just talking about this, might have been 2 days ago. And it was like, listen, So instead of paying $30 a month for home security through the cable company or whoever you're going to use, it was just like I decided to buy my own Ring devices that comes with a better access intercom that you can talk on, and it paid for itself over 11 months. And after the 11 months, I no longer have that bill. So learning how to budget with what you have, learning how to get rid of what you have, you'll be surprised how much we slowly kill ourselves in subscriptions that we don't even use.
Couldn't agree with you more. That's the nature of capitalism is to get you to pay. You know, low down payment, so much a month. Don't worry about it. You know, they're never going to tell you that you're busting your budget. They want you to get on that monthly payment. So you have to fight the power and say, wait a minute, what is this monthly payment doing for me other than sending me to the poorhouse?
You know, I seen an article. I was actually Shark Tank. It was a Shark Tank I seen, and I love the what he said about investment. It was a participant. He wanted $10,000 for his invention, and he said, you know, what money did you put up before I give you 10,000? What money have you put up to for your investment? And it was really nothing. So we said, you know, you need to cut back on, like Charles said, going out to eat, cut back on the cable bill. So once you invest in yourself, I think you and that just tends back to even black wealth there. You know, you need to make that sacrifice and save your own money and cut back on the things that you do dear and love in order to put your money into investment. And I think you will see that once you save and invest your own money, you're going to see more people willing to invest with you.
Yeah, and
yeah, and I wouldn't even sacrifice. It's being smart, because there are ways to spend your money that you could get just what you want out of it, but you don't have to spend money out to other people.
Great.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, I'm gonna throw a funny story out there. It was just like, I remember Brandon and I used to go. Well, Brandon would come to me to the gym with this the gym membership that I had, right, Charles? And it'd be too funny because I'd be like, "Yo, won't you just go ahead and get you a gym membership, man?" He'd be like, "Nah, bro, I can't afford it." And I'd be like, "I know you can't afford it." So I was like, and he'd always be like, "Nah, I can't afford it. Nah, I can't afford it." And it was just like, it took me years to understand the mindset that he had then. And it wasn't that I can't afford it. It was just that it's not necessary. When I have other avenues of going ahead and getting it for free, why would I go ahead and pay this money for this regularly? And he was like, I get it now. So now when I have conversations with him, it's like accounting for every dollar. You know what I mean? There's so many different budget apps that you can use. You just utilizing your own check register if you don't want to go ahead and use a budgeting app. But being able to account for every dollar helps. And my mindset used to always be on, I thought I had to have this one large sum of money in order to be able to do something. But the reality of it is that it comes in smaller increments, which is like, if you utilize your money and you save correctly, you're going to have so much more over time if you learn how to go ahead and invest. You know, I use investment calculators all of the time now. So now it's just like, you know, I like to look at how my money can make money for me. But it took me a long time to get to that point and to realize that it's not about just having this large sum or windfall, but it's about smart decisions, better choices over a period of time is going to put you in a better position.
Great, Tyrell. And I would like to just add the fact that, you know, it wasn't even the fact that, you know, I like to say I could afford it, but it was more of the fact that, you know, I wanted to save it. I invested better. So I wish we would have discussed that a little bit more at that time. But it was a great learning experience for the both of us there, and I'm happy that we went through that experience.
Yeah, me too. And sometimes you got to go through those experiences in order to be able to come out and educate other people. So like Charles mentioned earlier, you know, I mean, being a community resource for others. So what better person to utilize or to tap into than somebody who's already gone through that experience, somebody who you trust, somebody who you know is going to give it to you straight. And that's why I appreciate the two of you guys coming on today, because one, I know you both, and I know that you're going to give it to me, you're going to give it to our audience straight. And that's what we need. You know what I mean? It's not about blaming everybody else all the time. Sometimes it is about accountability. And then the other times it is about blaming it and putting it exactly where it needs to be. As Charles mentioned earlier, it was like, the banks ain't doing anything spectacular. They're coming in because they've been profiting on our community for a very long time. It's what they need to do. It's their form of reparations. So everyone needs to be put in those positions, but it all starts with knowledge. It starts with knowledge in regards to knowing where to look, knowing where to go, and starting the change to make sure that our generation doesn't have to go through the same experience as the generation before us, and changing that narrative and changing our family's dynamic is huge.
And I would like to add that, you know, it's work, Tyrell. Don't. And to all of our viewers, it's the work. Myself, Charles, and Tyrell, we give you this information, and don't think it's well, we can just go to the bank tomorrow and apply and it's going to be okay. It's going to be a lot of back and forth. It's going to be a lot of work, but you have to put in that work. So don't thank us, thank yourself, because you have to put that work in.
Okay. I like that. Thank yourself in advance. You know what I mean? So, you know what I mean? Like you said, put the work in, put yourself in position to change it for you and your family, for your generation, for your community, and stay vested. I'm just like, you know what I mean? No matter where I'm at, I always got Albany on the brain, period. And it's always just like, you know, well, you know, you can spend your time doing this here. I'm involved in so many different things down here in the DC metro area, but my heart is always on Albany. It's just like, you know, well, what can we do? You know what I mean? What should be happening? Because I have so many positive memories of Albany and experiences there, as well as the negative, but I have more that I choose to focus in on the positive. And I want everyone that's still there to understand that love and to be able to experience that, experience home ownership, experience positive relations, experience what the American dream really is. And it's not just limited to home ownership, but it's about brotherhood, experiencing the goodness of genuine people. And, you know, we need to have a little bit more of that. So I want that sprinkled all over Albany. Yeah. Well, listen, guys, I got, I think that we actually touched on the questions that I had in regards to one, the land bank, two, in regards to creating Black wealth, but you know, in case I missed it, because I'm definitely guilty of that at times. Were there any other closing pieces that either one of you guys wanted to make sure that is heard and that we get out to the people?
Well, I just wanted to say that even Tyrell is in the DC metro area. He talks like he's local. He knows Albany. And that's the beauty of technology. Say, hey, he moved away. No, because we can all collectively share knowledge no matter where we are, thanks to all these new electronic innovations. So the world is a lot smaller, and we're much more together than we think.
I like that, and I agree, And I'm invested in Albany, period. You know what I mean? Whether if it's through my fraternity, the property that I own up there, you know, I'm always in and out of Albany pre-COVID. But and it's so many other people that are just like me. And what I'm learning through these back interviews is that a lot of people are looking for ways to get involved and to stay involved and to give back. And ultimately, it's going to be on us to change that narrative and to change the direction of where Albany is going currently. But what about for you, Brandon? Anything that you want to make sure that we get out to the Albany community?
I just like to just reiterate home ownership that's dear to me. I see the city, they're putting in a new park over at 3rd Street Park.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was born and raised in that area and visit that park numerous times a day.
I beat you a bunch of times on that basketball court.
So me and Tyrell had a lot of good times on that court there, and they're putting a new park in. A lot of new sidewalks are going in, so I'm very excited on the change that Albany is coming across there. And I would just promote home ownerships. I know if you look at anyone that's trying to move right now due to COVID-19, a lot of people are moving, and it's very difficult to find an apartment right now. But if you ask any real estate agent, they're extremely busy, meaning the banks are still doing closing. A lot of it is virtual now, but get your application in, your homeowner application in, get an advisor. I'm always available to always give anyone any advice on what the next step should look like. I would say, and I'm excited about the change that Albany has to bring to everyone.
Okay. And my last question for you both will be, because I always like to gauge what you're reading, what you're into. Are there any types of books or podcasts or different things that you're reading that you might be able to recommend to the Albany community as a starting point, or something that's been beneficial to you? Charles, I'll start with you.
Well, Caste just came out by Isabella Wilkinson. That's a brand new book that just came out. There's Stony the Road by Henry Louis Gates. And then I'm reading about the black military experience in the Civil War to understand what black families, black soldiers went about in the Civil War. And it's been important for me as a white person to learn about black history, which has been hidden from our history books. So these are things that are important for me.
Well, for me, I've been reading a lot more articles and books on relationship. I feel like I'm starting to learn myself more. When I can learn myself more, I can learn. I can relate to others better. So that's what I've been spending my time with.
Okay. All right. And I think I'm somewhere in between you both. You know what I mean? I'm obsessed with relationships, and I'm obsessed with history. You know what I mean? I think over the last 3 months or so, it'll been about 3 relationship books: How We Love, Relationship Goals. But one of the other ones is Mel. I'm drawing a blank right now. Male versus man, you know, ourselves and how we interact with one another. Undergrad, I studied sociology, so I always love the understanding behind who interacts with each other, why we interact with each other, and how we interact with each other. So I'm always a student of life and a student of learning. But I really want to thank you guys for spending this Sunday afternoon with us here at B.A.C.K. I think that the information is going to be very beneficial, and thank you guys for sharing your experiences, your knowledge with the Albany community. And I wish the both of you continued success, continue safety, and continue wealth for you and your families.
All right, great, Tyrell. We both, me and Charles both enjoyed spending this Sunday evening with you as well.
Okay, all right. Well, listen, man, like I said, I won't hold you guys up anymore. And thank you, B.A.C.K. community, bringing Albany community's knowledge. You heard it first from Charles Toohey and from Brandon Stanfield. Thank these guys for the information that they were able to give us today. And I look forward to the positive changes that are coming to Albany and that we're going to be a part of. So you guys have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.